The moment Officer Tom Herrera spotted the old Chevy Malibu parked crooked under the flickering street lamp, something in his gut twisted. Midnight patrol in the small town of Hartsville was usually quiet, too quiet. But this didn't feel like another teenager sneaking beers by the lake. The car engine was off, the driver's door slightly ajar, the inside pitch black. Tom slowed his cruiser, hand resting near his holster. "Dispatch," he said, voice low but steady. "I've got a vehicle partially blocking the turnout on Mill Creek Road. Plate looks out of state, no movement inside." His radio crackled back. "Copy that. Need backup?" Tom hesitated. "No, I've got it." He had handled worse in his 28 years on the force, but the older he got, the more his instincts sharpened, and every instinct tonight screamed one thing: something is wrong. The wind blew hard, rattling the branches overhead. The Malibu didn't have the usual signs of trouble: no broken glass, no signs of a crash, no movement inside. But as Tom stepped out of his cruiser, he saw the first detail that made his heart beat just a bit faster. A faint smear on the windshield. Not dirt, not rain. Something written. He moved slowly toward the car, flashlight sweeping over the cracked asphalt. He paused only 2 steps from the bumper. The writing came into clear view, and his blood ran cold. "Help me. He followed me here." The letters weren't drawn with a finger. They weren't traced in steam. They were written in something dark, sticky, and unmistakably red. For a moment, Tom's breath froze in his chest. He raised the flashlight higher, illuminating the rest of the glass. They were more words, small, shaky, desperate, scrawled along the bottom edge of the glass. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it." A chill cut through Tom worse than the night wind. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't teenagers fooling around. Someone had written this in fear, in pain, in their final moments. Tom backed up quickly, reaching for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Herrera. I need immediate backup. Possible—" But he froze mid-sentence, because just then he heard it. A low, muffled sound coming from inside the car. A whimper, then another. Someone was still in there. Tom's pulse surged. He moved to the driver's door, flashlight raised high. "This is Officer Herrera with Hartsville Police. If you can hear me, call out." Silence. He gripped the door and pulled it open. It creaked loudly, too loudly, in the quiet night. What he saw inside made him step back in shock. A young man, maybe early 20s, curled beneath the steering wheel, shaking violently. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, both wrists zip-tied so tight his skin looked purple. A thin trail of blood ran from his temple onto the seat. But that wasn't what caught Tom's attention. No, what made his heart slam into his chest was the boy's shirt. It was torn open across the chest, revealing writing carved into his skin. Deep, ragged, as if done in the dark by someone untrained or someone who didn't care. "I warned you." Tom felt his stomach drop. "Kid, what the hell happened to you?" he whispered. The young man lifted his head with effort, his lips trembling. He's coming back," he rasped. "Please, you have to stop him." Tom leaned forward. Who did this?" Before the boy could answer, headlights flashed across Tom's back, white, harsh, blinding. A car was coming up the road, fast, too fast. Tom spun around, hand immediately going to his weapon. The Malibu's wounded passenger let out a soft gasp behind him. No, that's him." The approaching vehicle slowed suddenly, then stopped dead in the road, engine rumbling low. The lights stayed on. The driver didn't move. The doors didn't open. They just watched. Tom stepped forward, weapon drawn. "Hartsville Police, identify yourself." The engine revved. Then, without warning, the car peeled away, tires screaming as it vanished into the darkness. Tom sprinted a few steps but stopped. He couldn't leave the injured man behind. He turned back to the Malibu, breath misting in the cold night air. "Kid, stay with me," he said, dropping to one knee. "Help is coming." But the young man shook his head weakly. "Not fast enough." Tom swallowed hard. "Listen to me. You're safe now. Whoever did this won't get near you again, but I need you to tell me his name." The young man's lips parted, trembling. He... His head dropped forward as he slipped out of consciousness. "Hey!" Tom grabbed his shoulders. "Stay awake!" But it was too late. Sirens echoed in the distance. Backup was finally on its way. Tom reached into the car, cutting the zip ties, checking the young man's pulse. Still alive. Barely. Then Tom's flashlight caught something else, a folded piece of paper wedged between the center console and the seat. He pulled it out. A note, handwritten, and the same dark red substance smeared along its edge. He unfolded it with shaking hands. A short message stared back at him. "You should have left him where I found him." Tom's heartbeat hammered in his ears. Whoever he was, whoever wrote this, wasn't finished, and Tom knew with a bone-deep certainty, tonight was only the beginning. Something had slithered into Hartsville, something cruel, calculating, and violent, and it had just declared war. The ambulance tore through the quiet night, red lights bouncing off the trees as paramedics loaded the unconscious young man into the back. Officer Tom Herrera stood beside the gurney, chest tight, adrenaline still burning through him like fire. He'd seen violence before. He'd seen cruelty. But this level of deliberate torment was different, calculated, personal. "Tom," a voice called behind him. Sergeant Elena McBride walked up fast, boots crunching gravel, sharp eyes scanning the scene with the precision of a woman who'd been doing this job too long to take anything at face value. "What do we have?" she asked, already pulling on gloves. Tom exhaled hard. Male, early 20s, bruised, zip-tied, carvings on his chest. Looks like he wrote the message on the windshield with his own blood. Elena froze mid-step. "His own?" Tom nodded. "We need to move fast. He said someone was coming back, and someone did. Black sedan, dark tint, pulled up, watched us, then sped off when I confronted them." Elena swore under her breath. "Damn. Okay, let's sweep the vehicle." They approached the Malibu together, the wind whispering through the leaves overhead like the town itself was eavesdropping. Elena leaned inside, her flashlight slowly moving across the seats. "Tom," she murmured, "there's barely anything in here. No wallet, no ID, no personal items, nothing." "He was dumped," Tom said quietly. "Looks that way." Elena checked the back seat, and whoever brought him here wiped surfaces. Doors, dash, steering wheel, cleaner streaks are visible. Tom felt heat rising in his chest. Someone had gone through a lot of trouble to cover their tracks. "Elena, there was a note." He handed her the folded paper retrieved earlier. She held it under her light. Her brows pinched together. "You should have left him where I found him," she read aloud. "Sounds like a threat." "Or a warning," Tom added. She looked up at him sharply. "Meaning?" Tom rubbed the back of his neck. "Mill Creek Road doesn't get much traffic at night. Whoever drove that kid here knew exactly where visibility was low." Elena scribbled a note, "which means whoever hurt him is local or knows the area well." The thought chilled Tom more than the night air, because he knew this town well too. He had watched it change, seen the crime rise quietly, subtly, like a rot creeping beneath the surface. But this wasn't random street trouble. This was personal, precise, and terrifyingly controlled. A hollow echo of footsteps approached. Deputy Caleb Burns jogged over, slightly out of breath. "Sergeant," he said, "I checked the surrounding woods. Tire tracks leading off the road, same direction as the car you saw." "Fresh?" Elena asked. "Very," Caleb said, mud still wet. Elena turned to Tom. "Think the driver dumped him here and planned to return?" Tom looked back at the Malibu. The broken young man's words echoed in his mind. "He's coming back." I think whoever hurt him wasn't finished yet, Tom said quietly. Elena nodded grimly. Then we have a maniac in this town. Back at the station, the fluorescent lights felt harsher than usual. Tom sat heavily at his desk, the note laid before him in an evidence bag. Every detail gnawed at him. Why carve words into a victim? Why drop him off instead of killing him? Why write messages instead of hiding the body? It felt theatrical, deliberate, like someone wanted attention or wanted someone specific to see it. Elena emerged from the lab room carrying preliminary results. "Tom," she said, pulling a chair beside him, "I checked the VIN on the Malibu." "And?" "It's registered to a woman in Kentucky, reported stolen 3 days ago." Tom stiffened. "That doesn't help," muttered Tom. "The kid isn't the owner." "No," Elena agreed, "but it confirms the victim was moved long distance, maybe across multiple states." Tom leaned forward. "Human trafficking?" "Possible," Elena said, "but traffickers don't carve warnings into people. This feels personal." He nodded slowly, mind racing. "And Tom," Elena's voice softened, "are you okay?" He blinked. "Why?" "Because you look like you're carrying something you're not saying." Tom looked down at his hands. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a small folded sheet. A letter. Old, wrinkled, but familiar. Elena frowned. "What's that?" Tom hesitated, then handed it to her. She unfolded it, her face drained of color. "Tom, this handwriting matches the note found in the car." Tom nodded once, jaw locking tight. "This letter was shoved under my front door 2 months ago," Tom said low, voice raw. "Anonymous, no fingerprints, no witnesses." "What did it say?" she whispered. Tom shut his eyes briefly before answering. It said, "You think you're done with me, but I'm not done with you." A heavy silence filled the room. Elena leaned back slowly. "Tom, do you know who wrote it?" "I had my suspicions, but I couldn't prove anything." "And now?" Tom exhaled shakily. "Now, I think he's back." Meanwhile, across town, in a dark garage that smelled of oil and rust, a man wiped blood from his hands with a slow, satisfied smile. He hummed softly, an old country tune, while sharpening a knife on a whetstone. On the workbench beside him lay a discarded pair of zip ties, a blood-soaked rag, an empty syringe, and a photograph. A photograph of Officer Tom Herrera, taken from a distance. He lifted the photo, tapped the surface with the tip of his blade, and whispered, "Round 2, Tommy boy." Then, he turned off the light. Tom Herrera didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in the dim squad room long after the others left, the hum of the vending machine filling the silence. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows, slow at first, then steadier, like the sky was drumming out a warning he'd ignored for too long. The anonymous letter lay on the desk in front of him, beside the crime scene photos from the Malibu. The matching handwriting wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't luck. It was a message meant for him. Tom rubbed his temples, the memories he'd tried to bury clawing back into the present. He hadn't thought about that name in years. He didn't want to think about it now. But the truth didn't care. It always found its way back. The door to the squad room swung open, pulling him sharply back to reality. Sergeant Elena McBride stepped inside carrying 2 steaming styrofoam cups. "I figured you'd still be here," she said, setting one cup next to him. Tom exhaled. "Thanks." Elena pulled out the chair across from him. "Talk to me, Tom." He stared at the floor. "It's him," Tom whispered. "Him who?" Tom swallowed. His pulse thundered in his ears. "Jason Reddick." Elena froze. The name itself seemed to drop the temperature 10 degrees. "Tom," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "Jason Reddick has been off the radar for years. Last we heard, he was doing time in Nevada."
He wasn't doing time. He escaped, disappeared. Prison never announced it because they didn't want the heat. Elena blinked. How do you know that? Tom reached slowly into his locker, retrieving a thick, battered case file with a red stripe across the top. Classified, internal only. He placed it between them. Because after he escaped, Tom said in a low voice, he sent me another letter. That was 2 years ago. Elena stared at him, stunned. Why didn't you tell anyone? I tried. I reported it, but the higher-ups buried it, told me it was probably a prank, told me to focus on new cases. Elena's jaw tightened. And you listened? Tom clenched his fists. I didn't know what else to do. Reddick was dangerous, but without evidence. Elena cut him off. He's not just dangerous. He's a psychopath who blames you for what happened. You arrested him. Reliving that memory made Tom's chest constrict. Jason Reddick, violent, unstable, unpredictable, had terrorized families across 3 counties. Kidnapping, extortion. The worst part wasn't what he did, it was what he believed, and he believed Tom ruined his life. He swore revenge, Tom murmured, staring at his hands. Said he'd make me pay 1 piece at a time. Elena nodded toward the crime scene photos. And that kid tonight, he was one of those pieces? Tom didn't answer. He didn't have to. 2 hours later, the emergency room lights glared down on Tom and Elena as they walked through the hospital corridors. Nurses rushed past with clipboards, stretchers squeaked, a baby cried from somewhere around the corner. They entered room 214. The young man lay unconscious in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines, beeping steadily. Fresh bandages wrapped around his chest, covering the carved message that still made Tom's stomach twist. He should have left me. The words were a taunt, an accusation, a signature. Elena stood beside the bed. Surgeons say he lost a lot of blood, but he fought hard. He's a survivor. Tom nodded, but his eyes remained locked on the kid's still face. Elena noticed. You think he knows something, she said softly. I think, Tom replied, he was meant to deliver a message. Tom reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the crime lab's tablet. He turned it toward Elena. On the screen was a blurred image taken from a street security camera, the black sedan speeding away from the scene. Elena leaned closer. Enhance it. Tom zoomed in on the driver's side window. The image clarified. For half a second, a pair of pale, cold eyes stared straight into the camera. Elena inhaled sharply. That's him, she whispered. Tom's voice was barely audible. Jason Reddick. The weight of the name pressed on both of them. Tom felt the same icy dread he'd felt that night years ago when they finally cornered Reddick in an abandoned barn. The same bone-deep instinct that Reddick wasn't like other criminals. He didn't fear consequences. He didn't fear pain. He didn't fear death. He feared nothing because he believed he was chosen. And now he wanted to prove it. Back at the hospital room, a soft groan broke the silence. Tom's head snapped up. The young man's fingers twitched. His eyelids trembled, opening a sliver. Tom stepped forward. Kid, can you hear me? The young man's lips moved, but no sound came out. It's okay. You're safe. We're gonna help you. Elena moved closer. Do you know your name? Can you tell us anything? The young man swallowed difficulty. His voice came out scratchy, barely more than a whisper. Don't... Elena leaned closer. Don't what? The young man's chest rose and fell rapidly, fear climbing his features even in his fragile state. Don't trust. Tom felt his heart lurch. Don't trust who? He pressed. The kid's eyes darted toward the window, toward the shadows outside. Then, with great effort, he whispered one word, one that made Tom's blood run cold. Officer. Tom froze. Elena stiffened beside him. Officer who? She demanded softly. But the kid's strength faded. His eyelids drooped. The monitor beeped steadily again, signaling he had slipped back into unconsciousness. Tom and Elena exchanged a horrified look. He's saying a cop is involved, Elena said quietly. Tom paced back, running his hand through his hair. Reddick didn't work alone. He never had. He always had help. People he manipulated, threatened, brainwashed. But a police officer? Someone on the inside? Someone with access? Tom swallowed hard. Elena, he said urgently, if Reddick has a cop working with us. She finished the thought. Then Reddick knows everything we're doing before we do it. Tom nodded. And he'll be watching us, waiting. Across town, in the same shadowy garage as before, Jason Reddick stood in front of a wall covered in newspaper clippings, photos, maps, police records, and in the center, a large picture of Tom Herrera pinned like a trophy with red string running from it in every direction. Reddick ran a finger across Tom's face in the photo. Almost showtime, he whispered. Behind him, a door creaked. A silhouette stepped inside. A uniformed silhouette. A police badge glinted faintly in the darkness. Is it done? Reddick asked. The cop nodded once. Good, Reddick said with a chilling smile. Because tonight, we take another piece.
By the time Tom and Elena left the hospital, the rain had become a storm. Thick sheets of water hammering the pavement, turning the city into a blur of lights and reflections. Thunder rolled overhead like a warning neither of them could ignore. Tom slid into the driver's seat of the patrol car, fingers tapping nervously on the steering wheel. Elena buckled in, watching him carefully. "Talk to me, Tom. What's going through your head?" He stared straight ahead. If the kid was telling the truth, his voice tightened. Someone inside our department is helping Reddick. Elena didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, "Do you have anyone in mind?" Tom shook his head slowly. That's the problem. It could be anyone. Reddick was charming when he wanted to be. Manipulative, strategic. Elena added, and he loves using people who are vulnerable, people who owe him, people he knows how to break. Tom gripped the wheel. His knuckles turned white. Then he exhaled sharply and started the engine. "We're going back to the scene. I want that car towed for a second sweep." They drove through the storm, wipers fighting to keep the windshield clear. When they arrived at the cliffside turnout, the Malibu sat under the glow of a single floodlight, cordoned off by tape, abandoned except for the rain pounding its roof like bullets. Tom stepped out, rain instantly soaking into his coat. Elena followed, her flashlight slicing through the darkness. As they approached the Malibu, Tom noticed something he hadn't before. The passenger side window was slightly cracked open. He crouched, peering inside. Rainwater trickled through the small gap, dripping onto the seat. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was the paper wedged beneath the windshield wiper. Elena noticed too. "What is that?" Tom reached out slowly, pulling the paper free. Thunder cracked above them. Elena stepped closer, her face tense. "What does it say?" Tom opened the note. His stomach flipped. Elena read over his shoulder. "You're late, Officer Herrera. I thought you'd be quicker." A chill shot down Tom's spine. Elena whispered, "He was here." Her eyes scanned the empty road, the dark tree line. He was watching the entire time. Tom said nothing, but his jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. He turned toward the woods, scanning the tree line with his flashlight. "Read it!" Tom shouted into the darkness, his voice echoing across the cliffs. "Show yourself!" Only the storm answered. Elena grabbed his arm. "Tom, stop! He wants you unbalanced." Tom shook her off, chest heaving. "He's playing games, Elena. He knows every move we make. A noise cut through the storm. A branch snapping. Elena swung her flashlight toward the sound. "Did you hear that?" Tom drew his weapon immediately. He's nearby. They moved in sync, silent, slow, methodical, approaching the tree line. Rain pelted their jackets. The forest ahead looked like a mouth of shadows. Then, a figure bolted through the trees. Elena reacted first. "Tom, left!" Tom sprinted after the silhouette, crashing through the underbrush. Branches tore at his sleeves, mud splashed under his boots. Thunder boomed as he chased the shadow deeper into the forest. "Stop! Police!" Tom shouted.
The figure didn't stop, didn't slow, didn't hesitate. Tom pushed harder, adrenaline burning through his veins. He finally closed the distance enough to see more clearly. It wasn't Jason Reddick. It was someone else. Someone in uniform. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. "That's a cop!" Tom shouted. Elena's voice echoed behind him. "Get a visual!" The figure stumbled over a root, recovering quickly. For a split second, lightning illuminated the trees, and Tom saw the face. Not clearly, but enough. Enough to know the kid in the hospital wasn't lying. Enough to know their department truly had a traitor. Tom froze for a half second. Not for fear, of heartbreak. He recognized the face. "Elena!" Tom yelled. "It's—" A shot exploded through the woods. Tom ducked behind a tree. Elena dove into cover behind a fallen log. Several more shots followed, wild, panicked, desperate. "That's police issued," Elena shouted. Tom fired back, aiming high to suppress the shooter. "Stop firing!" Tom yelled. "Drop the weapon!" The shooter didn't drop anything. He ran, deeper into the forest. Elena moved toward Tom. "We can't lose him." Tom didn't need convincing. They sprinted after the fleeing figure, following the sound of crashing branches and snapping twigs. The rain slowed them, mud sucking at their boots, puddles hiding holes in the ground. But the shooter was fast, too fast, as if he knew the terrain, knew the escape routes. Elena gasped. "He planned this." Tom didn't reply, but the truth hit him like ice. Of course the traitor planned this. Reddick planned everything. At last, they burst out onto a service road that cut through the woods. Tire tracks sliced through the mud, disappearing into the darkness. Elena's chest heaved. "He got to a car." Tom stopped, soaked to the bone, breathing hard. The shooter was gone. The forest was silent. Elena looked at him with worry. "Did you see his face clearly?" Tom nodded, rain dripping from his hair. "I saw enough." Elena swallowed. "Who was it?" Tom wiped a hand down his face. Then he said the name he never thought he'd have to say. Officer Bradley Cole. Elena's eyes widened. "Cole? Tom, he's been with the department for 15 years. He's solid." "No," Tom interrupted sharply. "He was solid until Reddick got to him." Elena shook her head slowly. "This doesn't make sense. Cole has a clean record. He's stable, respected." Tom stared down the road where Cole had escaped, voice hollow. "Cole's daughter died 3 years ago." Elena's voice softened. "I know." Tom continued, "And Reddick was the last person she spoke to." Elena's breath caught. "What are you saying?" Tom closed his eyes. "I'm saying Reddick didn't just find himself a cop." He looked at Elena, jaw tight with dread. He found someone broken enough to believe his lies. They stood in the rain, both realizing the same thing at the same time. Officer Bradley Cole wasn't just helping Reddick. He was following him, willingly. Elena placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. "This changes everything." Tom exhaled shakily. "No," he said. "This confirms everything." He looked at the forest one last time. "This isn't about revenge anymore. This is a war."
Tom didn't go home. He couldn't. His clothes were soaked, his boots caked with mud, his muscles screaming after hours of chasing a man he once trusted. But none of that compared to what was happening inside his chest. As he pushed open the door to the precinct, every head turned. Officers paused mid-sentence, phones stopped ringing, desks froze in motion. Tom Herrera, the calmest man on the force, looked like he'd walked straight out of a battlefield. Elena followed close behind him, equally drenched but with a sharper edge to her expression, like she was daring someone to ask the wrong question. Sergeant Morris stepped forward instantly. "Jesus, Herrera, what the hell happened out there?" Tom didn't answer immediately. He headed straight for the briefing room. "Everyone inside, now." There was something in his voice, something they hadn't heard before, that made even the most senior officers move without hesitation. Within 2 minutes, the room filled,
Uniforms, detectives, even Captain Reeves left his office, brows pulled tight. Tom stood at the front of the room, hands braced on the table, eyes shadowed with exhaustion and fury. Elena closed the door behind them and leaned quietly against it. Murmurs spread across the room like sparks. Sergeant Morris stepped up. "Tom, talk to us. What happened?" Tom inhaled deeply. Then he said the words that detonated through the room like a bomb. "We have a traitor in the department." Silence. Total. Complete. Disbelieving. Captain Reeves folded his arms. "That's a serious accusation. I'm gonna need—" "We saw him," Elena interrupted. "He shot at us, tried to escape." Tom looked up, eyes locking on Reeves. "It's Officer Bradley Cole." Gasps erupted. Someone whispered, "Cole? No way." Another muttered, "He's been here for years." Morris shook his head. "He's one of the good guys, Tom. There must be some mistake." Tom slammed a hand on the table. The room jumped. "No mistake." He pointed at the evidence bag Elena had placed on the table, a soaked piece of paper, protected in plastic. "He left us a message at the scene. He knew Reddick was coming. He knew about the car. He knew everything before we did." Captain Reeves approached the bag, studying it. "Handwriting analysis? Already submitted, but we don't need it." Morris frowned. "Why not?" Tom's voice softened, but it didn't lose its weight. "Because I saw his face." Everyone stared. Captain Reeves's jaw tightened. "Where is he now?" "Gone. Reddick had a car waiting in the woods. They planned it. They executed it." Reeves rubbed his forehead. "We need warrants, a statewide alert, Cole's address, Reddick's associates, every property linked to Cole's family." Elena nodded. "We're already on it." Morris stepped closer to Tom. "Why would Cole do something this insane? He's a straight-laced, by-the-book officer." Tom looked down. Pain radiated from him like heat. "His daughter died 3 years ago," he said quietly. "And Reddick, he manipulated him. He used his grief, fed it, twisted it." A detective muttered, "Reddick always knows where the wounds are." Tom nodded slowly. "And he knows how to dig into them." Captain Reeves looked around the room. "This stays between us until we have Cole in custody. I don't want a media circus. I don't want panic among the ranks. We investigate quietly and take him down fast." Tom stepped forward. "No." The captain paused. "No?" Tom's voice was steady, but steel-cut. "We go loud." Murmurs exploded again. Reeves raised a hand to settle the room. "Explain," the captain demanded. Tom exhaled. "Cole expects us to hide this. He expects us to protect the department's image. If we stay quiet, he stays ahead." He placed both palms on the table again. "But if we go loud—" Elena finished for him. "He panics." Tom nodded. "And when he panics, Reddick panics. And when they panic, they make mistakes." Reeves rubbed his chin. "You want to smoke them out." Tom's jaw tightened. "Exactly." The captain considered this, then finally nodded. "All right, issue the bulletin. Cole's name goes public, and Reddick's." Tom turned away, heading toward his desk, but Elena grabbed his arm gently. "Tom, slow down." Tom said he couldn't slow down, his voice cracking just enough for her to hear the exhaustion beneath the adrenaline. Elena's gaze softened. "Your brother would tell you to breathe." Tom flinched slightly. Mentioning Marco always did that. He whispered, "Marco would tell me to finish what he couldn't." Elena didn't fight him on it, because she knew, deep down, Tom Herrera had been carrying this weight for years, and tonight it had finally cracked open. But the fallout was just beginning. The news broke within the hour. Officer Bradley Cole, 15-year veteran, decorated twice, clean record, was officially announced missing and wanted for questioning in connection with an active violent investigation. The department released his photo. The media exploded. Reporters flooded the precinct. Cameras flashed outside the gates. Every major station ran the story. Inside the precinct, chaos rippled through the halls. Some officers defended Cole, others were furious, most were confused and scared. Tom ignored all of them. He sat at his desk, drenched clothes replaced with dry ones, hair still damp, staring at the computer screen. Cole's profile stared back at him. Age 46, divorced. One daughter, Mia Cole, deceased at 17. Tom clicked on Mia's file. She was troubled, withdrawn, falling grades, a few therapy notes, and then near the bottom, final phone call before death, Jason Reddick, unverified acquaintance. Tom closed his eyes. It hurt to read, because he understood grief that left you vulnerable. He understood losing someone too young, too suddenly. But Cole had chosen the wrong path. He'd chosen Reddick. His brother Marco didn't have that choice. Tom snapped back to the present when Elena approached. "You haven't eaten," she said softly. "Not hungry. You haven't slept. Can't." She sighed, pulling a chair beside him. "Then talk. At least talk." Tom leaned back, rubbing his temples. "I knew Cole was grieving. I visited him after Mia died. He was quiet, empty, broken, but I never imagined he'd cross this line." "He didn't cross it alone," Elena said. "Reddick pushed him." Tom stared at her, not angry, not defensive, just tired. "He shot at us," Elena said. "I know. He tried to kill us." "I know. He worked with the man who murdered my brother." Elena's eyes softened. "I know, Tom." A long silence followed. Then she said, "But Cole is just the piece Reddick used. The one who used your brother is still out there." Tom swallowed hard. That was the part that mattered. Not Cole, not the other officers doubting Tom. Reddick. Always Reddick. Tom whispered, "I'm close. I feel it." Elena nodded. "We're close. Together." Before Tom could reply, Sergeant Morris ran into the bullpen, panting. "Tom, Elena, you need to see this." They hurried after him toward the command room. A large monitor displayed footage from a security camera, grainy but clear enough. In the corner of the frame stood someone in a hooded jacket. Then he turned slightly, his face partly exposed. Jason Reddick. Elena gasped. "Where is this?" Morris pointed at the timestamp. 30 minutes ago. Tom leaned closer, heart pounding. Location, a gas station, 3 miles from the precinct. Elena whispered what Tom already knew. "He's taunting you." Tom's hands curled into fists. "No," he said, his voice dropping into something colder than anyone had ever heard from him. "He's inviting me." The room went silent. Every officer stared at Tom Herrera, soaked from the storm, shaken from betrayal, exhausted, furious, and now locked into a purpose sharper than any blade. Sergeant Morris swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Tom looked at the screen, at Reddick, at the ghost who had ruined so many lives and was still daring him to follow the breadcrumbs. Tom's voice came out steady. "We go after him." Elena immediately nodded. Morris hesitated. "You sure? You're not thinking clearly." Tom cut him off. "I've never seen more clearly in my life." He stepped back from the screen, grabbing his coat. "Elena, with me." She didn't question it. They pushed through the doors of the precinct as if the storm had never ended, because for Tom, it hadn't. It was only getting worse. And the next step wasn't going to be an investigation. It was going to be a hunt.
The wind had died by the time Tom and Elena reached the parking lot, but the silence that followed wasn't comforting. It was thick, heavy with tension, as if the whole world was waiting for something to snap. Tom unlocked the cruiser, but before he could start the engine, Captain Reeves burst through the precinct doors. "Herrera, wait!" Tom stiffened. Elena sighed under her breath. "Here it comes." Reeves jogged over, his face a mixture of authority, worry, and something else. Fear, maybe. Not fear of what Tom might do, but fear of what might happen if Tom kept pushing. "Get out of the car," Reeves ordered. Tom stayed seated, hands gripping the wheel. "Captain, we don't have time for this. We have time to do this the right way." Tom didn't move. Elena spoke first, trying to bridge the chasm between them. "Sir, Reddick was 3 miles away, 30 minutes ago. If we wait—" Reeves cut her off with a raised palm. "No one is questioning the urgency, Detective. I'm questioning the stability of the officer currently gripping that steering wheel like it insulted his mother." Tom's fingers tightened. Reeves stepped to the side window, leaning in, lowering his voice so only Tom and Elena could hear. "You look like hell, Herrera. You haven't slept, you haven't eaten. You just found out one of your own betrayed this department. You were shot at tonight, and on top of all that, Reddick is dragging your brother's ghost back into your life." Tom flinched. Reeves saw it and pressed on. "Any one of those things would be enough to sideline an officer. You've had all of them in 6 hours." Elena opened her mouth, but Reeves raised a hand to silence her. "I'm not suspending you, I'm not removing you from the case, but I'm also not letting you run into the night in this condition." Tom finally met his captain's eyes. And for a brief moment, Reeves saw something unsettling. Not anger, not despair. Resolve. Cold, surgical resolve. "Sir," Tom said, "with all due respect, if I don't go now, he'll vanish again, and more people will get hurt." Reeves exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. "You are not listening. You're acting on emotion." "No," Tom snapped. "I'm acting on evidence. He was right there, Reeves. We've never been this close." A murmur rose behind them. Several officers had gathered outside, watching the confrontation unfold. Whispers spread. "Herrera's losing it. He's too close to this. Man should be on leave. Reeves better rein him in." The backlash was growing before Tom's eyes. To them, he wasn't a dedicated cop pushing the investigation forward. He was a liability, a man on the verge. Captain Reeves straightened, clearly aware that the situation was becoming a public spectacle. He raised his voice. "Everyone inside now." The officers reluctantly dispersed, but their sideways glances lingered. Reeves leaned in again, voice low. "Tom, listen to me. You burned yourself out chasing ghosts for years. When your brother died, you went on a crusade. And I get it. God knows I would have done the same. But what you're doing now, this isn't sustainable." Tom's jaw twitched. "Reddick isn't a ghost," he said softly. "Not anymore." Reeves swallowed. "Elena," he said, shifting focus, "talk some sense into him." Elena hesitated. She glanced at Tom, his clenched jaw, the weight on his shoulders, the fire in his eyes, and then back at Reeves. "I can't," she said. Reeves stared at her. "What?" "I can't," she repeated, "because he's right." The captain threw up his hands in frustration. "Detective, you're supposed to balance him out, not fan the flames." Elena took a step toward the captain, her voice steady. "He is balanced. You think he's acting out of rage? He's not. I've seen him angry. I've seen him reckless. This is neither. He's focused, clearer than I've ever seen him." Reeves scoffed. "Focused? He looks like he's about to collapse." Tom finally stepped out of the car. He stood tall despite the exhaustion dragging him down. "Captain," he said firmly, "you don't have to approve of my state. You just have to trust my work." Reeves stared at him for several long seconds. Then he sighed deeply. "I do trust your work," he said quietly. "I just don't trust what Reddick does to you." Tom swallowed. That was the real heart of it. Reeves wasn't stopping him out of distrust. He was stopping him out of worry. But worry wasn't going to catch Reddick. Tom put a hand on the cruiser door. "Sir, if you want to pull me from the case, do it. But if you don't, let me finish this. Not for me, not for my brother, for the people Reddick has hurt, for the people he will hurt if we don't move now." Reeves' shoulders slumped. Elena watched him with barely concealed tension. Finally, Reeves stepped back. "You have one condition," he said. Tom nodded. "Name it." "You check in every 20 minutes, and if I sense you're slipping, just an inch, I pull you out myself." Tom didn't hesitate. "Deal." Reeves turned to Elena.
You're responsible for keeping him alive. Elena smirked faintly. Always am. Reeves gave Tom one last searching look. Then he said the words Tom desperately needed. Go. Tom and Elena got back into the cruiser, shutting the doors in perfect unison. Reeves stepped away as Tom started the engine, his silhouette fading in the rearview mirror. For a minute, neither of them spoke. Then Elena finally broke the silence. You okay? Tom's expression didn't shift. No. She accepted it. But you still want to go, she said. Yes. She adjusted her seatbelt. Then let's go. Tom drove out of the precinct lot, the cruiser slicing through the empty streets. But the backlash didn't stay behind. It followed them. 2 miles down the road, Tom's phone buzzed. It was a text alert from internal communications. Notice, Officer Bradley Cole is considered armed and dangerous. Any officer encountering him is to contact command immediately. A mandatory meeting regarding officer conduct will be scheduled at 0900. Tom scoffed. A mandatory meeting? Are you kidding me? Elena rolled her eyes. You know how it is. Someone screws up, we all get punished. Tom's jaw tightened. Yeah, except this time the screw-up is working with the same man who killed my brother. Elena didn't respond immediately. Instead, she pulled up the security footage on her tablet, the image of Reddick staring straight into the gas station camera. He wanted you to see this, she said. I know. He's provoking you. I know. He's setting a trap, and we're not walking into it. Elena blinked. Explain. Tom turned onto a darker, quieter road. He expects me to follow the breadcrumbs, to chase him exactly where he wants. And we're not? Elena asked. No, Tom shook his head. No, we're gonna find out why he was at the gas station and what he wanted me to see besides his face. Elena frowned. You think there's something else in the footage? I know there is. Then what do we do first? Tom's eyes sharpened. We retrace his steps. Elena nodded slowly. And after that? Tom's voice dropped. And then we hunt. Back at the precinct, Captain Reeves stood at his office window watching the cruiser's taillights vanish into the night. Sergeant Morris walked up beside him. Do you think they'll find him? Reeves didn't look away. I think they'll find something. Morris crossed his arms. What if Reddick's planning something bigger? What if this is just the start? Reeves sighed. That's what I'm afraid of. Morris hesitated. Captain, what if Herrera's right? What if this is our chance? Reeves turned slowly. That's exactly why it's dangerous. When you get that close to a monster, you start seeing only the monster. Everything else becomes noise. He watched the empty road again. And Tom Herrera has stopped hearing the noise. The night stretched endlessly ahead of them, the kind of night where shadows felt alive and the roads seemed to breathe. Tom Herrera drove in silence, the cruiser cutting through the darkness like a blade. The city had long since fallen asleep, unaware of the storm brewing in its forgotten corners. Elena watched him carefully. His jaw was locked, his knuckles pale against the steering wheel. His eyes, sharp, calculating, scanning every passing streetlight as if expecting Reddick to materialize out of thin air. She had seen Tom focused before. She had seen him determined, angry, grieving. But this was different. This was the Tom who hunted. They pulled onto the highway heading east, toward the rural outskirts where the city lights faded behind them and the darkness swallowed everything else. Elena finally exhaled. So, she said lightly, are you going to tell me where we're actually headed? Tom didn't look at her. Where Reddick wants us to think he went. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have until we get there. She stared at him, trying to read between his clipped words. Tom, guessing games won't help us. Talk. He drummed his fingers once against the wheel, then spoke. He didn't go to that gas station to taunt me. Not just that. He wanted to be seen. He wanted his image in the cameras, which means he wanted us to track him. Elena nodded slowly. Breadcrumbs. Exactly. That camera captured everything. His face, the direction he came from, the clothes he wore. He controlled every detail. So if he wanted us to see him, then whatever he did before that moment is the real clue. Elena leaned back in her seat. You want to rewind his steps? Tom nodded. Where was he 30 minutes before that footage, an hour before? That's where the truth lies. They drove another silent mile before Elena asked, And you think you know where he started? Tom's eyes darkened. Yes, and it's not a place any sane person would go after midnight. They left the highway, taking an unmarked service road leading into the dense outskirts of the industrial zone, a long-forgotten area where factories died decades ago, leaving behind rusted skeletons and broken windows. As they entered the abandoned district, Elena felt a wave of unease. This place again? Tom didn't answer, but she already knew. This district, this broken stretch of factories, this area of ghosts, it was where Tom's brother Eric had been found 8 years earlier. Murdered, Elena whispered. Tom, you think Reddick came here first? Tom parked the cruiser in the shadow of a collapsed warehouse. I don't think, he said quietly. I know. Elena swallowed. How? Because that's what he does. He circles old wounds. He makes you relive them. He reopens everything you tried to bury. Tom got out of the car, flashlight in hand. Elena followed. The wind here was colder, sharper, carrying the faint smell of rust and rot. The gravel crunched under their boots as they moved deeper into the labyrinth of abandoned buildings. Tom moved with purpose, not reckless, not emotional, but precise. It made Elena uneasy. When he reached Warehouse 19, the same building where Eric had been left, he stopped. He stared at it for a long moment, the beam of his flashlight stretching across the broken doorway. This is where he started, Tom said. Elena stepped beside him. We don't know that for sure. Yes, we do. His voice didn't waver. He would come back here. He'd want me to remember. They entered cautiously. The warehouse was an enormous hollow shell, its ceiling sagging, its walls tagged with layers of graffiti. Broken glass shimmered faintly on the ground. I hate this place. Tom didn't respond. He walked deeper into the center of the warehouse, toward the rusted metal stairs that spiraled up to the old catwalk. She followed, heart thudding. Tom, slow down. But he had already stopped. At the base of the staircase, staring. Elena lifted her flashlight and froze. There was something on the second step. A small object, perfectly placed, centered. A folded piece of paper. Tom approached slowly, every instinct alert and coiled. Elena held her breath. He crouched, lifted the paper with gloved hands, and unfolded it. The beam of his flashlight revealed a single handwritten sentence. You missed something 8 years ago. Elena's stomach dropped. Tom. He kept reading, jaw tightening, eyes narrowing. There was more. A second line. Come find it. Then a set of coordinates. Tom stood up abruptly. This is his trail. He's telling us there's more to Eric's death. Elena shook her head. Tom, this could be a trap. It is, he said flatly. Then why follow it? Tom met her eyes. Because he wants us scared, hesitating. If we don't go, he wins. If we do go, we take back control. Elena stared at him, then nodded. What are the coordinates? Tom read them aloud. Elena felt the chill roll through her. That's the old quarry. Tom nodded once. Let's move. The quarry was 30 minutes away, a massive scar carved into the earth, long abandoned and left to fill with rainwater and weeds. No one went there unless they wanted to disappear. By the time they arrived, the moon had slipped behind clouds, leaving the land in near total darkness. Tom parked the cruiser near the rusted gate. Are you armed? Elena lifted her jacket to show her holster. Always. They stepped out and started down the gravel path leading into the pit. Elena whispered, You ever wonder why he's doing this? Why now? Tom didn't slow. He's escalating, getting bolder, more deliberate. Why involve you? Tom swept his flashlight ahead. Because I'm the only one who knows his patterns, Elena murmured. Or maybe you're the only one he wants to play with. Tom didn't answer. A moment later, the path opened into the massive pit. The quarry stretched out before them like a dead crater. Black water filled the bottom, still, silent. Tom scanned the area. He didn't tell us to come here for nothing. Elena scanned with her light. Look for anything new. Footprints, trash, disturbed dirt. They split up, moving slowly, methodically. Minutes passed. Nothing. Elena was about to say they should sweep farther when Tom suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. "Elena," he said quietly. Elena hurried over. He pointed at the ground. Loose gravel. Footprints. Fresh. Several sets, but one pair stood separate from the others. A heavier stride, a longer gait, a single direction. Toward the edge of the water. Elena whispered, "That's him." Tom followed the prints, stopping at the shoreline. Then he saw it. Floating near the rocks, a plastic evidence bag, sealed. Inside it, Elena gasped. "Tom, is that?" He lifted it gently out of the water. Inside was a metal badge, faded, rusted, but unmistakable. Tom's breath froze. It was Eric's badge. The badge wasn't with his body, Elena whispered. Tom nodded numbly, because Reddick kept it. Elena's hands trembled. "He brought it back. He wants you to know he had it all these years." Tom stared at the badge for a long, heavy moment. Then he looked out across the dark quarry. Every muscle in his body tightened. "He's not running anymore," Tom said. Elena swallowed. "He's pulling you in." Tom lifted his gaze to the black horizon. "No, he's calling me out."
The quarry was silent, but not the peaceful kind of silent, the kind that throbbed with something unseen, the kind that made the hairs on the back of Elena's neck stand straight. The badge sat between Tom's gloved fingers, dripping cold water onto the rocks beneath his boots. Eric's badge. The one the department never found. The one Tom had once searched for in every shadow of the case file. The one he finally forced himself to stop dreaming about. Now it stared back at him, trapped in a plastic evidence bag, like a ghost resurfacing from the dead. Elena watched his face carefully. Tom wasn't just angry. He wasn't just shaken. He was unraveling, in the quiet, dangerous way only men who've been holding it together for too long can unravel. "Tom," she said gently, "we need to call this in." "No." The word was sharp, fast, final. Elena took a step toward him. "Tom, listen. We don't call this in," he said, voice low but steady. "Not yet. If we do, the whole department swarms the place. Reddick disappears again, and whatever he planned for this ends." Elena hesitated. A part of her knew he was right. The other part feared how far Tom was willing to go alone. "So what's the plan?" she asked quietly. Tom looked toward the steep, jagged walls of the quarry, the ridges that split and zigzagged like a maze. "He's here." Elena stiffened. "Tom, we would have heard movement." "No," Tom murmured, "not him. Reddick doesn't move unless he wants you to hear. He doesn't reveal himself unless the reveal is part of his script. Right now, he's watching, waiting, calculating." Elena scanned the cliff edges instinctively. Darkness, more darkness, and more. But her heartbeat began to pick up. "What makes you so sure?" Tom held up the badge. He left this floating. This wasn't dropped accidentally. It was timed. He wanted us to catch up. He wanted us right here at this exact moment. Elena pulled her weapon slowly from her holster. "Then let's not give him the ending he wants." Tom nodded once. They stepped deeper into the quarry, the crunch of gravel beneath their boots echoing through the vast hollow. The beam of Tom's flashlight swept across old mining equipment, rusted cables, collapsed scaffolding. Every shape became a threat. Every shadow stretched like claws across the earth. Elena stayed close behind him, scanning everything, trained, disciplined, controlled. But Tom was moving with a different kind of awareness. He wasn't scanning the darkness for danger. He was reading it.
Tom, Elena said suddenly, the footprints. The ones they followed earlier had stopped near the water, but now fresh prints trailed off in a different direction, toward the far edge of the quarry where the rock wall narrowed into a natural corridor. Tom crouched to study them. One person, boots, heavy soles, same pattern, fresh within the hour. Elena swallowed. Then he's leading us there. Tom stood, weapon drawn. Let's finish this. The corridor between the rocks was tight, winding like a canyon carved by time. The air grew colder, the walls closing in. Halfway through, Tom stopped. Elena froze behind him. Reddick's voice echoed through the stone walls, but not from ahead, not from behind. It came from everywhere. A recording. "I've been waiting, Tom." Tom didn't flinch. Elena exhaled sharply, eyes sweeping the ridges. The voice was distorted, warped through a speaker hidden somewhere in the rock. The voice continued, 8 years. 8 years you chased ghosts. 8 years you blamed yourself for a death you didn't understand. Tom clenched his jaw. Elena put a hand on his shoulder. Don't let him in. Reddick's laugh trickled through the corridor, slow, drawn out, cruel. Do you want the truth, Tom, or do you want revenge? Tom answered the empty air. I want justice. Reddick hummed thoughtfully. Good, then come see what you missed. A loud click echoed from deeper inside the quarry. Elena lifted her weapon. Trap! Tom nodded, steady. Together. They moved forward, emerging into a wide clearing carved into the quarry wall, an old operating site where machinery once cut deep into the earth. Now it looked abandoned, empty, until Tom's flashlight landed on something at the center. A table, a single metal table. On top of it sat a black binder and a small flickering device, the source of the recording, now silent. Elena watched his face carefully. What's this? She whispered. Tom approached slowly. Every nerve in his body screamed caution. He opened the binder. Inside were pages of police logs, crime scene photos, autopsy reports, Eric's case file. But not the version Tom had been given. These were originals, unaltered, raw, the truth. He flipped page after page, breath tightening with each discovery. Tom? Elena asked. Tom swallowed. They left out evidence, he whispered. The department hid things, buried them. They scrubbed half the witness statements. They changed the timeline. Eric's death wasn't what they told me. Elena touched the edge of the table. Reddick had this, she murmured. Tom kept reading, and then he froze, because on the next page was a photograph of Reddick, younger, cleaner, wearing a civilian suit, standing beside someone Tom recognized instantly. Detective Holt. His old commanding officer. Elena covered her mouth. Oh my God, Tom! Tom's hand trembled. They worked together, he whispered. Holt and Reddick. Before Holt made detective. Before Eric. And the department covered it up, Elena added. Tom's breathing grew slow, heavy. Eric found something, he said, and Holt made sure he never talked. Before Elena could respond, a stone clattered above them. They spun. A figure stood at the top of the ridge, silhouetted against the moon. Tall, broad-shouldered, still. Reddick. For the first time, not a recording, not a shadow, not a memory. A man. The real man. Tom lifted his weapon. Reddick, hands where I can see you. Reddick didn't move. His voice carried down the cliff like smoke. You finally understand. Tom stepped forward, rage simmering beneath his skin. You killed my brother. Reddick tilted his head. No, he said calmly. I tried to save him. Elena's eyes widened. Tom froze. What? He whispered. Reddick stepped closer to the edge. Holt killed your brother. I watched him do it. I ran. That's what made me a fugitive. That's what Holt twisted into a story about me. I kept the badge so I could give it to you one day. Proof the department lied. Tom's world tilted. Elena whispered, Tom, he might be telling the truth. Reddick continued, Holt now knows you found the evidence, and he's coming. What? Elena snapped. Reddick pointed behind them. Tom and Elena spun. A beam of headlights flooded the quarry floor, a black SUV, driving straight towards them. Elena lifted her weapon. Tom! Tom grabbed her arm. Run! But it was too late. The SUV roared into the clearing, brakes screaming, doors flying open as heavily armed men in unmarked gear spilled out. Holt stepped from the passenger side. "Drop your weapon, Herrera." Tom's soul iced over. "Holt," he whispered, "you murdered my brother." Holt didn't even blink. "You should have kept your nose out of old files, Tom." Elena tightened her grip on her gun. Reddick shouted from the cliff, "He's here to erase you too!" Holt raised his hand. "Take them." Gunfire erupted as Tom and Elena dove behind a rock wall as bullets shattered stone around them. Reddick fired down from the ridge, covering them. Tom shouted, "We need evidence! The binder! Get it!" Elena slid across the ground, grabbed the binder, and retreated behind cover. Tom threw a glance upward. Reddick was still firing, holding Holt's men at bay, until a shot hit him in the shoulder. He staggered. Tom shouted, "Reddick!" Reddick looked down at him, not in fear, not in pain, but with a strange resignation. "Finish it, Tom," he shouted. "Expose them." Then he stepped backwards and disappeared over the ridge. Elena gasped. Tom's heart stopped, but Holt shouted again, "Kill them both!" Gunfire erupted once more as Tom and Elena sprinted toward the quarry exit, binder clutched tight, bullets chasing them into the darkness. The truth was out now, and Holt would do anything to stop it. But Tom wasn't running anymore. He was fighting back, and the real reckoning had only just begun.